paralytic, and all those things. Then even the epitrochlear, then popliteal, all group of lymph nodes are there. But there are some are deep, which are like mediastinum and the aortic group of lymph nodes. They are deep inside, and epitrochlear as well as the popliteal group of lymph nodes are lesser important compared to. So the most important group of lymph nodes will be the cervical region, the axillary region, and the inguinal region. Okay. So these are some of the important group of lymph nodes. Okay. And then the lymphatic system. So what is lymphatic system? Lymphatic system is nothing like, but it's the drainage system of the body. Okay. So this lymphatic system consists of two parts. One is the lymphatic vessels and lymphatic tissue. Okay. Lymphatic vessels and lymphatic tissue. So if you see here this picture, so all these are the lymphatic system vessels which are there in the whole of the body. The head and neck part, the thoracic region, abdomen, lower limbs, upper limb, and all those things. And all these will be finally all will be drained. And along with that, there will be tissues, group of organs, okay, collection of tissue which be an organ. So like the tonsil, the thymus here, the spleen here, the bone marrow, the lymph nodes, all these are the lymphatic organs which are present in the body. Together, the lymphatic vessels and organs together form the lymphatic system. Okay. Lymphatic system, as I said, the lymphatic tissue, okay, if it is diffuse, we don't name them like in the GIT, we have diffuse lymphatic system, where we don't have specific name. It is throughout the GIT. But there are particular areas like the ileum where we have specific names like Peyer's patches. Okay. Similarly, the other group of lymphatic tissue which are formed to be an organ like the thymus, lymph node, spleen, and the lymphatic nodules. Okay, so all these are important for the defensive mechanism, especially they will be fighting the pathogens, the bacteria, virus, and the other things. Okay, so and the lymphatic vessels are tubes that remove the tissue fluid from the tissue spaces and return it back to the blood system. If you know the blood circulatory system, this is the heart and this is the oxygenated blood. It is pumped to different parts of the body. It will go to the tissues. From the major vessels, they are go to the medium size, then the small vessels, then the capillaries, and from there into the different cells. Most of the blood will return back as through the venous system. Okay, but some of the tissue fluid. So if you see here, the blood has been pumped from the heart and going to the tissues, and these are the tissues, these are the cells, and between there is the tissue fluid. Most of it will be returning back through the venous system, but some excessive fluid, tissue fluid, will go to a separate vessel. This is the lymphatic channels, lymphatic vessels. So this is part of the circulatory system, but in a separate channel. Okay. So apart from the venous blood, there will be collection of the tissue fluid through a different channel. This is the lymphatic channel. So it will be passed through, this is the excessive tissue fluid passing through filters. These are called as the lymph nodes. Okay. It will be filtered through the lymph node and it will be returned back to the circulatory system. Okay. So it is a separate channel of the circulatory system through which the tissue fluid will be sent back into the circulatory system. Okay. So this fluid within this capillary, this is called as the lymph. Okay, this will be called as the lymph. It is nothing but tissue fluid that passes through the lymphatic channel. Okay.
What's the benefit of lymphatic channel?
Yeah, we will talk about it. One is, I said, as they will be acting as defensive mechanism because the lymphocytes are added through these filters. One is it is filtering the fluid. The second thing is it will add the excessive quantity of lymphocytes which help in the defensive mechanism. Okay, so that's why these channels are important. And the lymphatic capillaries are fine vessels. They cannot be seen with the naked eyes. You can see the blood vessels, arteries, veins, big large arteries and veins, everything. But the lymphatic capillaries are very small except a few. All cannot be seen by the naked eyes. They have to be visualized by the microscopes. Okay. And the large one, especially, there is one which will be, we'll talk about that, the thoracic duct, where it will be beaded in appearance. Okay. because of lot of valves. Because just like the vein has to drain back into the heart, similarly even the lymphatic tissue has to drain back into the heart. So for that it has to go against the gravity, especially if it is coming from the lower part of the body. So it will have lot of valves, and the wall is very thin. So that's why it looks beaded. We will talk about this later. Okay. So this lymph passes through the lymph nodes and finally returns to the bloodstream. Okay. So if you see here, this is how the lymph node will look like. Okay. Then see the lymph node. When you see, when you cut and see, then you can see like this. Okay. The lymphatic vessels which are entering these lymph node, these are called as the afferent lymphatic vessels, and they will pass to the hilum of this lymph node. Okay, afferent. And the efferent will be on the outer surface and on the opposite side of the body of this lymph nodes. This is how the lymphatic vessels will enter and leave. Usually the hilum is the place where the blood vessels enter as well as leave. But in case of the lymph node, the lymphatic vessels will enter through the hilum and they come out through the opposite side. Okay.
So hilum is a common name, Victor?
Hilum is the common name for all the structures, for all the organs where the structures will be entering. Like for the lung, there is an hilum of the lung here. Okay. So here will be the hilum. Okay. So all the vessels will be entering as well as coming out through this. Okay. Not on the other surface, always through the hilum. But in case of the lymph node, this is the speciality, that the afferent vessels will be entering to the hilum, but the efferent will be coming to the opposite surface. Okay.
Doctor, excuse me. Doctor.
Now coming to
Doctor.
the lymph nodes, yeah.
What is the difference between lymph vessels and lymph capillaries, and what are the functions of them?
Lymph vessels are all the vessels. Capillaries is the smallest part because there are lymphatic vessels also, larger vessels.
Yes.
Capillaries means the most minute part, the smallest part of the vessel.
Okay.
Okay. So the lymphatic capillaries are the smallest one, and the lymphatic vessels include all the larger and the capillaries.
So, Doctor, we saw lymph nodes, and we know their function, and we saw lymph and lymph tissues, which are the organs. But lymph vessels, where are they in the?
Throughout the body. Throughout the body. I showed you the picture where they are present, spread everywhere. They are not named as like the blood vessels, except a few. Okay. Not these are all not named. See, so they are throughout the body.
The green one?
Here, the green one.
Yes.
These are all the channels.
Lymph
These are
vessels.
lymphatic vessels. Oh, all these are lymphatic vessels. There are very few which are shown here. If not, if you cut the body and if you want to really show, it is very difficult because they are totally spread throughout the whole body.
And what is the function of them?
I said the function is of the defensive mechanism. I said one, they filter the tissue fluid. The second thing is they add the lymphocytes, which help in the defensive mechanism to fight the bacteria, virus, and other things.
Okay.
Okay.
And Doctor, excuse me, last question. Within the lymph vessels are the lymph nodes?
When the lymph vessels are passing at particular areas, there are lymph nodes.
They will filter the lymph.
Yeah, they will be passing through it. If you see this again, this picture, these are the lymphatic vessels.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
Okay.
So here are the lymph nodes.
Okay.
So whenever the tissue fluid passes through this, it will be
Okay.
filtered.
Yes.
Again, there are multiple filters.
Yeah.
Okay. So it will be passing through filtered
Thank you.
as well as the lymphocytes are added. Okay.
For this picture, this is upside down, right?
Hmm?
This is upside down.
Upside down, yeah. Upside down, anywhere. Lymph nodes don't have the specific direction. Anywhere it can be turned and okay. And the lymph nodes, even if you palpate, you don't feel. Normal, you don't feel unless they are enlarged. So whenever you examine the patient, when you touch and feel the cervical, the axillary, and the inguinal, they are not felt usually, unless they are enlarged. And if they are enlarged, then it means there is some infection or something like that, because of which they are enlarged. Okay. So they are very minute when you see. They have to be seen under microscope, unless they are enlarged. Okay. Or very small beaded like appearance. Okay. Coming to the lymph nodes which are in the cervical region, they are classified into the horizontal group as well as the vertical group. Okay. So this is how they look like, and they are classified into horizontal and vertical. What is horizontal? So this is how you draw a line like this, then it becomes horizontal. Okay. Starting from the submental group of lymph nodes here, then we have the submandibular, then we have the parotid, postauricular, preauricular, and the occipital. They all pass through the horizontal. They are not exactly horizontal, it is oblique, but they call it as the horizontal group of lymph nodes. Okay. The second group is the vertical group, like this. Okay. So we have the vertical group, and here they are classified into two types: central, which are at the center, and the lateral, which are on the near the sternocleidomastoid muscle. Okay, central are near the trachea, so they are called as the prelaryngeal, pretracheal, and paratracheal. So which are in the front, they are called as pre-pre, which are on the side, they are called as the paratracheal and pretracheal. Okay, so they are very small group of lymph nodes here. And the second group of lymph nodes are around the sternocleidomastoid muscles. So these are the jugulo-digastric and the jugulo-omohyoid. There are two types, superficial and deep. What you feel are the superficial. What are deep inside, they are very difficult to feel. So they are all around this muscle, this sternocleidomastoid muscle. They are usually on the anterior or sometimes on the posterior side of this muscle. Okay. So they are classified into superficial and deep, and they are jugulo-digastric and the jugulo-omohyoid group of lymph nodes. Okay. Then the lymphatic drainage of this head and neck part. So the anterior part of the scalp as well as the face will be all drained into this group of lymph nodes here. The preauricular group of lymph nodes, then the parotid group, submandibular and submental. Okay. Then the posterior part of the scalp and other remaining part that will be drained into the postauricular as well as the occipital group of lymph nodes. This is how it will be drained. Okay. This is about the head and neck. Apart from this superficial group of lymph nodes, there are some important tissues which are important again for the defensive mechanism. One is called as the palatine tonsils. Okay. So these palatine tonsils are a pair of masses of lymphoid tissue located on the lateral wall of the oropharynx. If you see here, this is the lateral wall of the oropharynx seen from the side. Okay. Then when you see here, there is the palatine tonsil, and it is between two arches. This is called as the palatoglossal, and this is called as the palatoglossal arch, and this is the palatopharyngeal arch. In between these two, you can see a small collection of lymphoid follicles, and this is called as the palatine tonsil. Okay. Again, when you ask the patient to open his mouth, it is seen, but it is not enlarged unless it is infected and swells up. At that time, you can see big and large, especially in case of children and teenage group. You can see the group of this palatine tonsil. If they are infected, they swell and they become reddish cherry in color, and they swell up. And if they are too much enlarged, the baby cannot feed, especially small infants who are on breastfeeding. They stop feeding at all because of the very much enlargement as well as painful palatine tonsils. Okay, so these are the palatine tonsils which are within the oral cavity and between the palatoglossal and the palatopharyngeal arch, and they are covered by the mucous membrane which is covering the oral cavity. Similar, but how do you identify? By the irregular surface, and it has pitting. Okay, numerous small openings within this surface. So this is how you identify. If you see here, so a lot of small holes like things are seen. Okay, so these are the openings for this one. Okay, for the tonsillar crusts are there. Okay, through which the food particles will enter, and if there is any bacteria virus, that will be pulled inside, and then the other things will happen. Okay. Okay. So the lateral surface. So this is the lateral. So this is the oral cavity surface, medial surface, and the other side is the lateral surface. It is covered by the fibrous capsule. We are talking about this palatine tonsil in detail because there is an objective where they have all the details of the palatine tonsil, and they can ask you in the examination about the palatine tonsil itself. So you should know everything about this palatine tonsil. So the lateral surface is covered by the fibrous capsule here. Medial surface has mucous membrane with lot of pits. Okay, and this will raise the maximum size during the adult childhood. Okay, teenage group or in the childhood group. Okay, blood supply is an artery called as the facial, the branch of facial artery that is called as the tonsillar artery. If there is enlargement as well as the infection of the tonsil, the operation is very easy to remove. Okay, just they will clip this tonsil and they cut it open. Okay, cut and remove the tonsils. But the danger, from inside, from the oral cavity. The operation is easy, but the complication, it has a big complication. This is the damage to the tonsillar artery. This is the tonsillar artery, you can see here. Okay, when you cut and remove, because it doesn't have a proper closure after the tonsillectomy, if they don't close it properly, then there can be severe bleeding and the patient might die. Okay, that is the danger. Even though the operation is very simple, but there were previously a lot of cases where they couldn't stop the bleeding. Okay, so because of the tonsillar artery which doesn't flow easily because of the bone here. Okay, so this is the tonsillar artery, which is a branch of the facial artery. Okay, deep artery. Facial artery usually supplies the face. Okay, but the deeper branches will supply the tonsil. Okay, and the venous drainage is by the external palatine vein. Yes. So this is the external palatine, or it is also called as the paratonsillar vein. Okay, and the lymphatic drainage is into the jugulodigastric group of lymph nodes. As I said, there are deep group of lymph nodes here, so it drains into the jugulodigastric group of lymph nodes. And the nerve supply is by the two nerves, one is the glossopharyngeal and the lesser palatine. So this is about the
Medial surface.
Okay.
Medial surface is covered by what?
Medial surface by the mucous membrane of the oral cavity. Medial surface is what you see from inside. Lateral surface is which is on the deeper side. Okay. So this is about the tonsil. Okay. Apart from this tonsil, there are other group of lymph nodes around the oral and nasal cavity. All together, these are called as Walde's ring. Again, the Walde's ring can be a short notes for you, so you should know what is Walde's ring. Okay, Walde's ring is nothing but a group or collection of lymphoid tissue or organs which form a ring. Okay, ring formed by group of lymphoid tissue that surround the opening of the respiratory and digestive system. Okay, if you see here, this is the respiratory system and this is the oral cavity. Around this digestive system and the respiratory system, around this there are group of lymph nodes. Together they are called as Walde's ring. Okay, what is this? How it is formed? Okay, so to know that, so if you see here, the one thing you are seeing on the lateral surface is the palatine tonsil. Okay, so on the lateral side there is palatine tonsil. Along with that, there is also called as something called as the tubal tonsil. What is tubal tonsil? There is a small tonsil around the auditory tube which opens into the posterior part of the nasal cavity. So there is an opening that is called as the auditory tube. Auditory tube is the connection between the ear and the oral cavity or nasal cavity. Okay, the connection between the ear and the nasal cavity. That's why whenever you fly, at that time sometimes because of the difference in the pressure, your ears close. Okay, and when you close your mouth and try to swallow, at that time it will open. Whenever the ears are closed, at that time try to swallow, and at that time it will open because there is connection between the nasal cavity and the ear. Okay, so this is the auditory tube. Near the auditory tube there is small collection of lymphoid tissue. This is called as the tubal tonsil. Okay. Then in the roof of the nasal cavity there is something called as the pharyngeal tonsil. This is again important in case of children where they get infected, and that condition is called as adenoids. Where they enlarge again, they become swelled up, highly infective, and then again the child cannot take feeds and they will stop feeding. Okay, because of this pharyngeal tonsil infection that is called as adenoids. Okay, so this is the adenoids. Yeah. Okay, so this is the pharyngeal tonsil. Then this is on the roof and these two are on the lateral side. Then on the lower part and near the floor, the posterior part of the posterior 1/3 of the tongue, it will form the lingual tonsil. This is called as the lingual tonsil. Okay, lower part of the or the posterior 1/3 of the tongue. That is called the lingual tonsil. Again, there is collection of lymphoid tissue here. If you see here, there is a lingual tonsil, and here is the collection of the lymph nodes. Okay, all this together they form a ring. So if you see here, this is how it looks like. Above on the top, this is the pharyngeal tonsil. Below on the floor, this is the lingual tonsil. On either side, we have the palatine tonsil and the tubal tonsil on either side. So tubal tonsil and paratonsil are paired, and the lingual and the pharyngeal tonsil are single. So all together they form a ring, and they form the first line of defense. Whenever you respire or take food, this will act as the first line of defense. Okay. Coming to the applied aspect, as I said, if there is enlargement of this pharyngeal tonsil, then it is condition is called as the adenoids. Similarly, when this palatine tonsil get infected, there will be collection of pus. This condition is called as quinsy. This is also called as the peritonsillar abscess, or it is also quinsy. Okay, at that time if there is pus, then they, as I said, they do tonsillectomy and remove the whole tonsil. But at the same time, as I said, there is some complications which has to be taken care of. Okay. So this is about the palatine tonsil and the Walder's. Coming to the axillary group of lymph nodes, as you know already, there are 5 pairs of the axillary group of lymph node. One is the anterior near the pectoralis major muscle. Okay, so we'll have anterior on the anterior wall of the axilla. On the posterior side, we have the posterior group, and on the lateral side, near the humerus, you can feel the lateral group of lymph nodes. Then deep inside, you can see the central, and if you go from the deep inside, then it is called as the apical. These are group of lymph nodes which are present in the axilla, and they drain. The drainage area for these group of lymph nodes is the pectoral region of that side, for each side. Okay, then the back of that side, as well as a part of the lower part of the neck, as well as a small part of the upper part of the abdomen. So these are some of the regions which will be drained by this axillary group of lymph nodes. Okay, and this is very important, especially for the carcinoma of the breast. Yeah.
Drainage does mean it's enter.
Yeah. Okay. So if there is any infection of this part, in the skin, if you imagine, so this is this. How do you find out that there is infection here? If it is deep inside, if it is superficial, you can see something, but if it is deep inside, you cannot see. So try to feel that drainage area. So it will all drain into this group of lymph nodes here. So if you know the drainage area, if there is infection of the tongue, the tip of the tongue, that will drain into the submental group of lymph node. So if you know the drainage area, you can easily identify, palpate that particular region, feel the group of lymph nodes, and if they are enlarged, then it means that area is infected. Yeah, you want to add something?
When it's finished, let's go back to the bloodstream.
Later. It has to pass through here if there is infection here. It has to come first, it will drain into the group of lymph nodes. Here it will be filtered, then it go back to the bloodstream.
By subclavian vein?
Subclavian, yeah. There is, I will talk about that, where it will drain exactly. Okay. Okay. At the junction, subclavian as well as the here. You see here. So this is the subclavian vein. I will talk about that. Okay. First we will talk about these lymphatic tissue first. Okay. Now after this axillary group of lymph nodes, as you know more, so I did not mention much about this. The second important thing is the other lymphoid tissue will be the thymus. Okay. So this is one of the important lymphoid organ, especially again during the teenage groups. Okay. So it is situated in the anterior and the superior mediastinum. Okay. So anterior and superior mediastinum is that region where the heart is present. So whatever is in front of it, it is called an anterior, which is above it, it is called a superior. So it is present anteriorly as well as the superior. Okay. And it is, as I said, well developed during childhood, and especially it is maxima during puberty. Later again it starts regressing. Okay. It is bilobed. It looks like a thyroid gland, but it does not have a gland. It looks like similar to that with two lobes here, and they are pyramidal in shape, but they have unequal size. Okay, so here you can see that this is the thymus. Okay, and the development of this is from the endoderm of the third pharyngeal pouch. You might be knowing the pouches, or later you might study. So the face and all parts of the neck, all these are developed from the pouches. Okay, so it develops from the third pharyngeal pouch. This is the third pharyngeal pouch, and from here is the thymus developed from either side, and it comes down and get descended, and it form the both the lobes will join together. Okay. Weight, okay, at birth it will be 10 to 15 grams, but the maximum it will reach during puberty to 30 to 40 grams, and later it becomes regress and it becomes 10 grams, or sometimes it totally disappears. Okay, so this is how. So when you dissect and see, you cannot find the thymus unless it is in teenage group. If not, usually whenever you dissect, you don't find any thymus, but some connective tissue will present, that's all. Coming to the blood supply, it is supplied by the internal thoracic artery and the inferior thyroid artery. Okay. Venous drainage is by the left brachiocephalic vein, internal thoracic vein, and inferior thyroid vein. And the nerve supply is vasomotor is by the stellate ganglion, and the capsule supplied by the phrenic nerve, as well as descending cervical. Okay. So this is about the thymus. Coming to the vessels. One of the vessels is the thoracic. This is the largest lymphatic vessel. Only this and few others have names. All other vessels, as I said, they are throughout the body, but we don't give names. Like for the arteries and the veins, we have specific. Everywhere we have specific arteries and veins, they have specific names. But for the lymphatic, because they are very small, minute, so we don't name them unless they are enlarged. Like the thoracic duct, this is the largest lymphatic vessel. So if you see here, these are the veins here, and here you can see this is the thoracic duct. So this is the thoracic duct. Okay. So this, as I said, this is the largest lymphatic vessel of the body, and this is the principal lymphatic channel. Means it will be draining most of the body. All the lymphatic vessels finally they all drain into this, and from here it will drain back into the circulatory system. And this tissue fluid here, it will be thickish white, and this will be called as the chyle. This is called as chyle, and especially whenever especially the lymphatic vessels which are draining the absorbed material from the intestine, then it becomes especially whitish, and then it will be called as the chyle. And most of the lymph of the body is drained into this. Okay. So the extension of this vessel is from the second lumbar vertebra. Okay. So it starts from the abdomen. Okay. Second lumbar vertebra, and it ascends upwards and drains near the neck of the base of the neck. Okay. So it begins from a sacculation. Okay, saccular dilatation means like a sac, like a bag, like a kiss. Okay, it is a big bag-like thing, and this is called as the cisterna chyli. This is called as the cisterna chyli. Okay, so it begins like a bag from the abdomen at the level of the second lower vertebra, and it begins as a bag which is called as the cisterna chyli. And most of the lymphatic vessels of the abdomen and the lower limb, they all will be drained into the cisterna chyli. Okay.
So, Dr. Cisterna chyli, is it the same as chyli, which the thoracic duct itself convey it to the blood?
Can you repeat what you said?
You said it begins from
cisterna chyli.
Yeah. Is it the same as chyli in the fourth line?
And this is chyle. Okay. This is the chyle is the name of the
What's
fluid.
the difference?
Okay. This is the name of this bag. This is called as cisterna chyli. Because it is draining the chyle, so that is why it is called as the cisterna chyli.
So chyle is a
Cisterna chyli is what?
Yeah. Mainly from the intestine, yeah.
Cisterna chyli, it's not thoracic duct, right?
It part of the thoracic duct, that's the beginning of the thoracic duct.
So,
beginning of
It
the
is a part,
thoracic. Yeah, part of the thoracic duct. It is called as the beginning. Okay.
Yeah.
Or sometimes it can be kept as separate.
Yeah, yeah.
So it is a bag here.
Yeah.
This is the cistern chyli. From here it begins the
Okay.
thoracic duct.
Yeah.
Okay. The drainage area for this is it drains the whole of the body. It drains the whole of the body, but there are exceptions. So except the right part of the head and neck, the right part of the upper limb, and the right part of the chest wall and the back. So this part is not drained by the cisterna chyli. Except that all other left side, if you see head and neck part, upper limb, the thoracic part, abdomen, the whole abdomen, both the lower limbs, everything is drained into this, and from here it will be pumped back into the heart. Okay, so it is draining the whole part of the body except the right part of the head and neck, the thoracic region, the upper limb, and the back. Okay, except this, other all parts are drained by this thoracic duct. Okay. The course, as I said, it begins from the abdomen at the level of second lumbar vertebra below the diaphragm. There is a diaphragm here. This is separating thorax from the abdomen. So it is beginning in the abdomen and it passes through this near the vertebra and it will be lying on the vertebra itself. Initially it will be on the right side, but later it goes to the left side and goes upwards and drains. Okay. The feature with which you can identify this duct is, as I said, most of the vessels of lymphatic vessels cannot be seen by the naked eyes, but this can be seen because it is enlarged, it is big. Okay, so it can be seen. How do you identify from other vessels? How can you differentiate? One is it is flexuous. The second is it is beaded like appearance, beaded like you do. Okay, tasbih. Okay, so it is beaded. So similarly, here also it looks beaded. Why it looks beaded? Because of the presence of the valves. Okay, it is the wall is so thin that even the presence of valve make it dilated. The wall of this vessel is so thin that even the valves which are present inside make it dilated. So at that particular region, it is looks like dilated or enlarged. So that's why it looks like beads. Okay, lot of beads, collection of beads. Okay, this is how we can identify this. One is the beginning of from the cisterna chyli. There you can see the back, and above you can see the beaded appearance. Measurements. The length is almost 38 to 45 centimeters, and the width is very small, just 5.5 centimeters. Okay. And the slightly sinus, as you can see, as there is a sinus dilatation, and considered intervals. Okay, which make it beaded appearance, or also called as the varicose, just like the varicose vein, because of the presence of the valves and the incompetence of the valve, like in case of varicose vein. Here also it looks like it is varicose. Okay.
What's the meaning of varicose?
Varicose means, in case actually it is in the venous drainage. So especially if you see the great saphenous vein, okay, it is draining from the lower limb. It has to pump all the blood up to the heart. So it needs lot of energy. Okay, and it has to push from down to up. So to prevent backflow, there are valves in the varicose vein, lot of valves in the vein. Okay, but sometimes these valves, they are working in one direction. They just allow the blood to flow upwards, but they don't allow the reverse flow. But in case of varicose, these valves lose their consistency and they start moving in both the direction. So when the blood is forced up, it will come up. Then again, when there is no pressure, the valves will turn on the opposite side and the blood will go back. So this leads to enlargement of vein. Okay, and you can see a very prominent vein running like this. So this is called as the varicose vein. Even it happens in case of the testis also. There is plexus of veins around the testis, and that also sometimes get varicose. That is called as varicose. Similarly, that is the incompetence of the valves in case of the big veins like the great saphenous vein or the testicular vein. But here there is no incompetency. It looks like varicose. Usually the veins cannot be seen. Okay, and even if they are seen, they are straight almost. Okay, but in case of varicose vein, if you see the patient, as soon as you see the patient, you can make out he has varicose. very coarse, especially those who stand for a long time. Okay, like the surgeons, the cardiothoracic surgeon, they do sometimes surgeries for 11 hours. So they will be standing for such long time that it leads to varicosity. Any occupation which needs long standing leads to these kind of conditions. Okay, so that is called as varicosity. Okay, so here also there is no problem here. It looks like varicose vein. Okay. Termination. Okay, so it will pass through whole this area and it terminates at the junction of the left subclavian as well as the left internodular. With the left internodular vein coming from the head and neck, and with the left subclavian vein which is draining the upper lip. At the junction of these two, this thoracic duct will go and just drain. Now this whole pile will drain back into the circulatory system. Okay, so this is how it will send all its tissue fluid back into the circulatory system. Okay.
Varicose is normal condition for
In case of the veins, it is abnormal. Okay. Here it is mentioned it appears varicose. Means
Feature.
it looks like, yeah, it is just a feature. It is not problem here because there are dilatations, right? These dilatations are seen in the veins when there is varicosity. Okay, so they have just mentioned. If you have some problem, just forget that. Where appears varicose. Okay, okay, okay. I had just mentioned the feature, how it looks like. Okay. So what are the tributaries? Just like the veins, the arteries will have branches. Instead of that, the veins will have tributaries because it is draining back. Similarly, here also it is draining, so they are the tributaries. All the vessels which are draining into the this thoracic duct. Okay. One is a pair of descending limb trunk. You see here, descending limb trunk, which will drain the posterior intercostal spaces, the lower 6 intercostal spaces. Intercostal space is the space between the two vertebrae, two ribs. Okay, so that is the intercostal space. Okay, costa is the rib, and between the two ribs, that spaces, these are called intercostal spaces, and it will be draining with the lower 6 intercostal spaces. Okay, this is descending thoracic. Then a pair of ascending limb trunks also are there. Okay, which will be draining the upper lumbar limb nodes. Okay, so then we have vessels which drain the posterior mediastinal limb nodes as well as the posterior group of limb nodes and upper space of the left side. So these are the broncho mediastinal limb nodes and the right and the left side, and also directly into the thoracic duct, also the upper 6 intercostal spaces will be drained directly into this. The vessels, the lymphatic vessels will drain directly into the upper 6 will drain directly into this thoracic duct. The lower 6 will drain into the descending thoracic, from there into the thoracic duct. Okay.
Victor,
Yeah.
what's the difference between descending and ascending? You wrote ascending.
So here descending is because the single vein, the lymphatic vessel will drain. This lower 6 is coming down, so that's why it is called a descending. Okay. The others will be draining directly here or to some to the ascending. Okay, which will arch and drain into this.
So-
This is our thoracic duct. This is the cisterna chyli. Yeah.
Could you repeat it?
Hmm?
Could you repeat it?
Repeat it.
Yeah. The vessels here, the lower 6 intercostal spaces will be drained into a single vessel,
Okay.
which is coming down before it opens into the thoracic duct. So it is descending down, right?
Yes.
So these are the vessels coming from each space, lower 6.
Okay.
So that's why it is called as descending. It is coming down and then opens to thoracic duct. Some will ascend upwards like this.
To what?
Huh?
To what?
Ascend and they will drain again into the
Okay.
into the thoracic duct.
Okay.
And some will drain directly. The upper 6 intercostal spaces will drain directly into the
Okay.
thoracic duct itself. Okay.
Yeah.
So they are just vessels, but
These are all vessels, okay, which are draining into the thoracic duct. Finally,
3 groups: one ascending, one descending, and one direct.
okay. Then we have the left jugular limb trunks, draining the left half of the head and neck. If you see here, left jugular, which are coming from above, from the head and neck part as well as the neck. Okay, so the left jugular group also. Then we have the left subclavian, which are coming from the upper limb. So left subclavian. These are also draining into this. And occasionally the left broncho-mediastinal lymph nodes also drain from the lung, left lung as well as the left side of the heart. All this will drain into this thoracic group of nerves. And for lower limb, these are the external ilia, the internal ilia, all these are draining into the cisterna tibialis, as well as even the intestinal lymph nodes. All will be finally they all drain from above, down, middle, everywhere. They all drain into the thoracic duct, except this part. Okay. So this part, where they will drain into an other channel which is called as the right lymphatic duct. This is the thoracic duct is the main duct, but there is one more which drains the remaining part of the body, that is called as the right lymphatic duct. Okay. So the right lymphatic duct is the area of drainage is the upper side of the right side of the head and neck part, the upper limb as well as the upper part of the chest as well as the back. All these are the area of drainage, and where they terminate, all this area will drain through this right lymphatic duct into the same place but on the opposite side. So the junction between the right subclavian as well as the right internocular vein. Between the junction between these two is the opening for the right lymphatic duct. This is a smaller duct. If you see here, this is the thoracic duct. It is a large duct which is opening on the left side. But the right lymphatic duct is a small duct because it is draining lesser areas, but it opens into the similar area on the opposite side. So this is the difference between the thoracic duct and the right lymphatic duct. Okay. The drainage area is similar on the right side, on the left side. Okay. But the area of drainage for the right lymphatic duct is lesser, only the right part of the head and neck, upper limb as well as chest, front and back. For the all other parts of the body, it will be the thoracic duct. Okay. So this is about the lymphatic vessel, the main vessel. Okay, only these 2-3 vessels or some vessels are named. Apart from that, all other vessels are not named. Okay, they are named. Development. Again, development is important because they are mentioned there. The thoracic duct is bilateral in development and it developed from 3 sources. So if you see here, this is how it looks like. Okay. The lower vertical part is developed from the lower part of the primitive right lymphatic duct. There are 2 ducts here, right lymphatic duct and left lymphatic duct. So the lower part is developed from the lower part of the right lymphatic duct. Then the intermediate, this is the intermediate part. The intermediate part is developed from the cross connection between the right and the left primitive duct. And the upper part is developed from the left part of the left primitive duct. Okay. So other parts will disappear. So there are 2 ducts initially during development. So the lower part of the right duct will remain intact. The connection between 2 will remain intact. The upper part of the duct will remain intact. Other parts will disappear. So it becomes, that's why it is not straight. When you see the pose, starting it will be straight, then it becomes oblique like this cross, then it goes to the left side and then drain into the left side. Okay, because of the developmental difference.
Victor,
Okay.
what is the right thoracic duct in the diagram?
In this,
And in this picture?
in this picture or
Yeah.
in this picture,
Yes, yes.
they have disappeared. The right part is here, which is intact, which
Okay.
remains. The upper part is disappeared, and the left duct was here initially. It has disappeared except the upper part, and these are the connection between the right and left.
Okay.
So once this is during development, when it is in the fetus, once the baby is formed, it has come alive, then all these remaining parts will disappear. They don't remain. Okay. So this is the development of the thoracic duct. Okay. Coming to the applied aspects, this is important in some of the conditions like the parasite infection, where this filarial parasite infection, where the parasite will come and accumulate itself in there and it try to block. Okay, it blocks this channel. Okay, at that time there is no lymphatic drainage, and the lower part of it will start swelling because of the accumulation of the tissue fluid, and there are conditions called as the elephantiasis and other conditions. Okay. So this is because of the parasitic infection. Okay. So this is the lymphography where you can see this whole of the thoracic duct. Pass a dye through this lymphatic channel and you can see the whole channel and whether there is any block or something. Sometimes during surgeries, they might, during the surgery of the abdomen or the thoracic region, because these vessels are very delicate, when you are doing a surgery, even a slight injury might lead to leakage of this vessel. And leakage due to injury after the thoracic surgeries or sometimes the abdominal surgeries. This leads to acute emergency which lead to almost 50% of death, 50% of unknown death. They try to find out there is no problem, nothing is there. There is no bleeding or the wound is healing well and the patient is recovering. But later the patient starts degrading himself and they cannot find out what is the cause of death. The patient will die, almost 50%. Even a slight injury to this thoracic duct. So whenever they are doing the surgery, especially in the thoracic region, they should be very careful when you're going on the posterior side, on the posterior wall of the thoracic region, especially near the vertebrae. Because even slight injury leads to death of the patients and continuous leakage, and they cannot diagnose what exactly is the problem. Okay, because usually they don't think of the lymphatic system unless they really are very good in this, and they have seen many cases of the same. And the third condition is called as the chylous hydrocele. As I said, accumulation of these chyles. Okay, if there is any block because of parasite or injury or something like that, then there will be accumulation, and this leads to a condition called a hydrocele, especially in the scrotum. In case of the male, especially the lymphatic drainage from the scrotum cannot go back because of blockage and injury, and then they lead to a condition where there is big swelling of the scrotum, and sometimes it might enlarge to a very large extent. Okay, so there might be some pictures when you Google, you can see some conditions where there are big testes just because of this hydrocele. Okay. So this is some of the conditions where this lymphatic drainage bearing around the scrotum. Sometimes this, when I said injury to the chyle or the vessels or the lymphatic system, sometimes this chyle might come through the urine. This is called as the chylous urine. Okay. These are some of the clinical conditions which we'll study later. So this is all about the lymphatic drainage of the head and neck part, upper limb, as well as the thoracic.